Hello, this is our CSE 412 Phase 2. The first step is converting our ER diagram into a relational model with tables and columns. So we have three main tables for our application. The first table is users, which will be used for users to create new profiles and also log in and see their account. So the primary key is user key, which is an integer that cannot be null. The username is a string of 100 length that also cannot be null, and the password is a string of mixed characters of 100 length that can also not be null. The next table is books, which will be used to display all the books on the website and hold information about these different attributes about the books from our data set. So the primary key is book ID, which is also an integer that is mandatory to include. The title is text, which is also required. The authors is text that is required. Average rating is a decimal up to two places, and this is because the average rating from our data set is represented as a decimal up to two places. And the ISBN is a string of 20 characters, and the publisher is a string that can go up to 255 characters. And the reason that we chose these specific data types for these attributes is because it's exactly what's reflected in our CSV data set that we used. And the last table is user books, which is going to be used to display all the reviews written by users on our application. Like, for example, if we want to show what users that a person put for a specific book. So we have a composite primary key, which has user key and book ID, and these are both foreign keys from these other two tables, referencing the user key and book ID. And we have another attribute, which is the rating, which is an integer between 1 and 5. And this is optional for the user to put on their review. So in PG Admin, this is how these tables look. So we have the three tables, books, user books, and users. So books has the six columns that we mentioned, and book ID, which is the primary key, is first. And then user books has the three columns, and these two, which are the primary key, are also first. And then users also has three columns, like we mentioned, and the primary key, which is user key, is listed at the top. So now Ishita will show us how we populated these columns and tables with data.
So once Ravina created the tables, the next step was to import data and populate the tables. And I started that by first importing the data into these tables. So for example, here for the books table, I clicked the import data option, and then over here I found this CSV file, selected that. And then the options section, I turned on the header option and changed the delimiter to the comma because that was how our data was organized. And then I clicked OK and imported that. And then I continued to populate the tables. Um, And here's how I did that. So I started with the users table because we didn't have any data regarding the users like user ID or passwords. We had to generate that, and I used this query to generate the usernames and the passwords for that. And this is what that table looked like. These are the first 10 rows of that. We have the user key, the usernames, the passwords. Um, and then for the books table, I just proceeded to copy the data from the CSV file because we already had the book ID and the author's ratings and everything. So I just needed to copy that into the books table. And then this is what that looked like, or the first few rows of that. And then moving on to the user books table, we also needed to generate data for that because we didn't have um any ratings created by users or anything. So we generated that using this statement right here. And so, for example, that table, this is what that looked like. So we have the users and the books that they have rated, and I generated random ratings for those. So this is just an example of what that table looks like. And yeah, next Saloni and Leah will cover some SQL queries for our application.
Okay, so I'm going to go over the first two select statements. So our first select query was to select the ratings for specific books, and that's done through this query. And our goal with this was it shows the different ratings for the book ID we specified, which in this case is book ID 1591. And in this case, we wanted to see the reviews for this book ID, which its name is Alyssa Strada. So if I generate this, we have the user key, username, and user rating for this book. Next, we are gonna do a query that shows the average ratings for the top 5 books. This is the query we did to use to do that. And our goal with this query was to return the top 5 books with the highest average ratings among users of our application. In our data set, the highest possible rating is a 5. Um, and as you see, when I generate that, the highest ratings are of 5, which match that because that's how we wanted the highest 5. And this shows the different aspects of our database because we can select the author's book names and average ratings. And next, Saloni will go over some more use cases.
So for the next three queries, it was insert, update, and delete. So it's kind of building off of the first select query we did. So we're going to insert a rating into the Alyssa Strata book that we did a select query for earlier. So we're going to insert a rating from the user with the user key 1. And we're going to insert a rating of 5 for that book. So when you run it, it shows that it has been inserted. And then in order to check that, we're going to do a select query for that book just so we can see. So when we run that, we can see that instead of just one rating, now there are two, and there is the rating of 5 from the user key 1 that we added. The next query is an update. So we will update the rating that we just added. So instead of having it be 5, we're going to make it 4. So when you run this update query, you can see that it says it has run successfully. And then when you do the select query for this, it should show that the 5 that we previously had updated to 4. So this would kind of be for a scenario if the user read a book and kind of or like progressed more through the book and liked it less or more from their previous rating, they can go in and kind of change it. And then the final query is delete. So um, we're just going to delete the rating that we had added. So it says it has run successfully. And then once you do that select query again, it should show that there's only one. The original rating is left in the database. So yeah, thank you. That was our CSC 412 project phase 2.